And we're back for another episode of Standpoint. I'm Gabe Groisman, and I am really excited today to have Rich McCormick here. Dr. Rich McCormick, Congressman Rich McCormick. He's got so many titles, you don't even know which way to go. He represents Georgia's 6th District. He's a decorated veteran. He was in the Marine Corps, where he was a naval aviator, a helicopter pilot, if I'm not mistaken. Then he was a Navy vet, where he became a doctor. He was a commander in the medical corps, an ER doctor. I've heard from some people, one of the best ER doctors in the world. And we met just a couple years ago here in South Florida, and he's one of these guys that when you speak to him, you really just can't not be impressed by him as a person, politics aside, even though I think our politics align very much. But even separate from politics, just as a human being, someone who's really dedicated to everything that they're doing and to their people and the people of the 6th District of Georgia, which is just west of Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, and it's actually the 7th District now. We just we just got reapportioned because of a court case. The judge was trying to create an additional Democratic district.
Yeah.
It just made it more galvanized. We actually went from 12% R to 13%, although we won by 29%. That's another story, but it's a great district. It's almost exactly the same. It just changed the borders a little bit.
Unbelievable. Beautiful part of the country. Those folks are lucky to have you representing them, as are all the folks in the United States. This is Standpoint, and I'm Gabe Groisman. Rich McCormick, thanks so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Really glad to be here. I love this area of the world. It's kind of my home away from home. Someday when I make it big, I want to have a place down here too.
Yeah, I think you can have a place down here whenever you like. We were just talking about how interesting this is. I think people would love to hear this. You are an emergency room doctor, a physician. You wanted to work as an ER doctor, and it turns out members of Congress can't do that.
Yeah, there's a rule against lawyers, accountants, and doctors working and making money. It's considered fiduciary. It's unfortunate because it's something I really enjoy. As a matter of fact, on the way down here, I was on a plane, and somebody had a medical emergency, and I got to take over, and it was like exhilarating is what I remember. I remember that rush that, like, this person may die. I kind of want to be part of this. I want to do my best to make sure that they turn out well. And I miss those days. I miss that the importance of trying to land a helicopter on a carrier at nighttime when it's dark, when a few people could do that and very many people couldn't. I like doing things like that because that's rising to the challenge, and that's kind of hopefully we can do something in politics in the same way.
Yeah, so you landed in the right committees. People who don't know, right? When you're a member of Congress, it's all about what committees you're put on. If you look at your bio and then you look at your committees, you're like, all right, this guy got what he was supposed to get. So it's armed services, and there's subcommittees on there that are all pretty impressive. Foreign affairs, which I know, especially for the JNS crowd and even for the Rumble crowd, very important for so many people. And then science, space, and technology. So much leaning into innovation when it comes to military. Tell me, first of all, when you look at those committees, the committees around, what are your priorities? What are you trying to accomplish, at least in this next session?
Well, one of the things I always say is when we look comprehensive at what America is on the face of the earth for, we have great influence. Most of that comes because of our GDP, our economic power. Calvin Coolidge, one of my favorite presidents, 100 years ago said, the business of America is business. If you have a large GDP, if you have a large economy, you can fund a large, powerful military. You can project power. You can affect the way the things are in the world. You can actually protect peace. You can help your friends, protect your friends. There's an old saying that wearing armor is fine for yourself, but if you need a sword in order to go on the advance and to defend your friend, because armor is not going to defend your friend. And so I want to make sure that we're projecting our power in a correct way towards good people. This is where the whole relationship between Israel and us is very important, and also to market it in the right way too. And I think I'm a big part of that.
It's interesting. People, I'd love to get your take on the importance of military deterrence, because today in the U.S., through all sort of political circles, by the way, I think on the right and the left, people are anxious about getting involved in more wars. I mean, that's a result of many years of wars around the world, just or unjust. I'm glad to get into whatever you'd like. But at the end of the day, there is a reluctance of whether the U.S. should get foreign entanglement, should get involved. Mm-hmm. But from where I sit, the only way we can have peace is through strength, and the only way you can have peace through strength is if there's actually deterrence, right? When the U.S. moves its naval carriers to a region, that people stop, right? And I think we lost that a lot under the last president, in the last 4 years under Biden. We can give many examples of them making lines in the sand like Obama did, but also Biden didn't use that language, but he did the same thing. And actions continued, like Hezbollah continued when they attacked Israel after Biden said don't, right? Military deterrence was out the window. So how important for you is reestablishing military deterrence if you think we've lost it?
So as a guy who spent well over 3 years of my life away from my family in combat zones, whether it be off Iraq or in Africa or Afghanistan, there's a price to be paid. One of the things that we've done historically has been involve the world. And it's funny, whenever we withdraw from the world and become more isolationist, bad things happen, quite frankly, because if we're not there, somebody else is going to replace us. Right. Reagan said 40 years ago, on the 40th anniversary of D-Day at Pointe du Hoc, he said, isolationism never was and never will be the answer to an expansionist, tyrannical government. And that's never going to go away. If you look at our place in the world, people who think that being isolationist is also nationalist and also mega don't understand. I'm really happy to see the President Trump, actually coming around and saying, you know what? We can win in Ukraine. We can win big time. Realizing that a country that's $2.1 trillion in GDP, which is Russia, going against the rest of the world, which is, Texas alone has $2.7 trillion GDP. We have almost a $30 trillion. Europe has a $20 trillion. 50 trillion versus 2, we win every single time. There's no way they can keep up with us. Even though they're spending 9% of their GDP on military, we're spending roughly 3.5. We just went to 3.8. By the way, still historic lows since World War II. For those people who think we're spending too much on the military, small percentage of our budget compared to what we historically have done, with a great result, by the way. But this goes with whether you're talking about Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan. If you allow bad actors to continue to expand, that's exactly what happened during World War II, by the way. That causes war. Anybody who's been in my position, who's been deployed, who's seen their friends die, who wears the wristband and understands the price we pay by being weak, understands that we don't want war. I don't want to see my sons go to war. My sons are all military age. They will be the first to go over there and fight and die. Now, if it's for a worthy cause and it's to protect the United States, I'll do it. And my sons will do it gladly because we love this country. But I'd much rather see peace. Yeah. And you're not going to have peace when you withdraw from the rest of the world. The bad guys will advance. You'll have China and Russia and North Korea and Iraq or Iran doing very bad things, and we'll pay the price financially too, by the way. Ukraine, top 5 country in resources. People think that you're going to save money by allowing that to go to Russia. Where do you think that 70% of Europe's grain is going to be sold to? Not to Europe, to food poor countries like North Korea, China, and Iran. That cobalt, that uranium, that steel, that titanium, all those resources will be going to somebody else, and we will miss out on that. The amount of money we'll have to spend against a stronger enemy will far outdo anything we do if we don't invest right now, to include Israel, by the way. And it's really important that people that think that Israel is some sort of nefarious actor, that they want to eliminate and exterminate. There's only one people that are talking about exterminating somebody else. And it's not Israel talking about exterminating. You may have fringe people talking about that, but when you want to talk about governments, look at no further than Iran, who's sponsoring all this, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis. They absolutely have in their charter that Israel is the little Satan. They need to be eliminated from the face of the earth. All that stuff that Rashida Tlaib was censored by my bill, by the way, which we had 22 Democrats vote for.
Bravo for that.
Because she was quoting the same people that want to eliminate the Jews off the face of the earth, eliminate Israel off the face of the earth. The only people who are doing that need to be taken out. And it's very specific. If Israel laid down their arms right now, they wouldn't exist in today. But if the Hamas, Houthis, and Hezbollah laid down their arms, we'd have peace. Pretty freaking straightforward in my mind. And understanding, yes, I hate it when innocent people suffer. I get that. I have people who are friends of mine, Christians and Muslims alike, who've reached out to me and say, my relative is suffering horribly, and I get it. The war is a horrible thing. But what are we to do? And there's no easy solution once this can of worms opened up, and on October 7th, it was open, and it's a horrible thing we have to deal with now.
Yeah, first of all, that quote that you mentioned, or that saying about laying down their arms, is actually an old Golda Meir quote. that she talked about in general about Arabs. And sometimes you do have to simplify things. It's great to talk in depth. That's what we do here about lots of topics. But sometimes you do have to simplify things to understand them. And sort of the charges of Israel wanting to wipe out Gaza has one of the strongest militaries in the world. They've lost almost 1,000 men and women in uniform trying their best to be surgical. If they wanted, they could have just done the whole thing from the air and dropped bombs and killed many, many more people. They're not doing it for that reason. The ambassador, Yechiel Leiter, who's been on the show twice, he lost his oldest son, who was a friend of mine, Moshe Leiter. His memory should be a blessing. In November of 2023, going house to house in a place where they easily could have come in with an air raid, right? But they did it to make sure there were no civilians there. Instead, it was a booby-trapped residential home that blew up and took his life. But, you know, just broadly speaking, we're talking about isolationism and our involvement around the world. The world, I think you'd agree, is really being divided in two, right? Both economically, militarily, and politically. On one side, at the top of that column, is the United States and Israel and all of their allies. And on the other side is Iran, China, Russia, etc. So we were talking about us, when we leave an area, like we're talking about Argentina's in the paper this week, that's where my family comes from, right? The U.S. is looking to bail out or at least to help financially Argentina. If they don't, China's going to do it, right? 100%. That's who's coming in next, and that's what happens. So this week has been the UN General Assembly, the UNGA, the gathering of leaders from all over the world. And I think as we're seeing it, today's Thursday, this episode will probably come out Sunday morning. When you see the gathering there, you see that divide. It's so stark, right? The United States, Israel, and their allies. By the way, even countries like Indonesia are now signing up on that side of the ledger versus the rest of the world. We saw on the first day, which was the first day of Rosh Hashanah. You know, go figure, that's when they do it. But where they had a two-state solution summit. France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Malta, Monaco, UK, Canada, Australia, and Portugal all, quote unquote, recognized a Palestinian state. I'm not sure what borders of that state or where it is or who its leaders are. I don't think they care. It's just a political statement. Thankfully, the U.S. vetoed the vote on that issue, so that there was no vote on it. But tell me, from your perspective as a member of Congress now dealing with so many issues, Foreign Affairs Committee, how you see what's happening at the UN. How is that reflective of what's happening around the world?
Well, first, I want to point out, you don't have to be recognized as a nation to be flourishing. Look at Taiwan. Who recognizes Taiwan? We don't recognize Taiwan as a nation. We don't want to get China angry, but yet they are flourishing. They have a huge GDP per capita. They have the computer microchip processing of all AI chips. So they're leading manufacturer. I think about 90% of the most advanced computer chips in the world are produced there. They're not recognized, but what they did is focus on what? Industry, not on war. And this is why I say you don't need to be recognized as Palestine, as a country, as a legitimate government, because, by the way, Hamas is not a legitimate government. They have one mission that's not anything to do with their own people. That's the problem, is they think the only way they succeed is to destroy another people. That's not a good way to start. They need to focus on business, on being friendly, joining the Abraham Accords, recognizing Israel, working in business. Matter of fact, one of the things that is one of the greatest things I've ever seen is the way the Abraham Accords humanizes people. You and I can both coexist. We may not even agree on religion or anything else like that, but you know what? This dude's pretty good. We can make money together. We all flourish. All of our lives are better. How about that? How about focusing on that? But no, this government is illegitimate. It's absolutely hateful. Its only focus is war, and it doesn't even have the money to project that. So, of course, it turns to Iran, and they become proxies. And this is why I say that if we have the right focus, and the two states, Brian Mast, who's a good friend of mine and the chair of the Foreign Affairs, he said in front of me, he's like, the problem with the two-state solution is when you have known entities who are going to take charge of that state, who want to destroy another state as almost like their charter, their original charter, how is that going to work? And if you want to have a two-state, then how about you start with showing good faith and actually showing that you're going to be good partners in this area. You're not going to just be a war tribe going out to create hate and discontent for everybody else and use those protections as a nation to justify your actions. And UN, by the way, has not helped themselves at all. Not only are they corrupt, and I was in Rwanda in '94 when they pulled out and all hell broke loose and almost 1 million people were killed and beheaded and babies were dashed on rocks because they didn't do anything. UN is not delivering food. UN is not ever taking chances. They don't solve problems, and they're anti-Semitic, in my opinion, anti-Israeli. They're anti-American. This is why they're in hot water with President Trump and, quite frankly, with myself too. NATO serves a purpose. NATO has done some good things, but UN really has a lot to prove to me that they actually are fair players and they actually want what's best for the world, not just to be anti-American.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and I agree with much of what you said. And the issue with NATO is that they have to hold to their charter, right? So if you have countries like Turkey, who are a NATO member country, who still harbor terrorists and even fund terrorism, but they're still members of NATO, and that violates the NATO charter, that makes it more difficult. But maybe it's still a net positive from my perspective, right? It still does better, more good than bad. And we heard rhetoric from the president, President Trump, and from Secretary of State Rubio on the UN and really just questioning. So what are we doing here, right? Are we losing our purpose? I know the U.S. is withholding, according to the Wall Street Journal, I think $3 billion right now in funds to the UN. And they should, right? They should say, where's our money going, right? Where is our money going? We're not just going to continue to write blank checks to the United Nations.
And I will say this too: pay attention to what our politicians are doing right now. You saw Senator John Ossoff and his votes.
Yeah,
anti-Israel. He's Jewish. Warnock, also in Georgia, by the way. Surprising that we have two Democratic senators. It doesn't make any sense to me, but watch what people are voting for and what their justification is. It doesn't match anything they actually believe. This is the sellouts. I've disagreed with President Trump on multiple things. It's an honest discussion.
Right.
It's okay that one person doesn't get to decide what an entire movement belongs. Matter of fact, if everybody believes the same thing, it's a cult.
Yeah.
We should have a disagreement between you and I. I'm sure we have some disagreements, and that's okay. Actually, it's healthy, and I like that. And matter of fact, I'm never going to convince you you're wrong by arguing with you or proving something. I'm going to convince you that I love you, and then once you believe that, then we're going to have a great discussion. And I always tell my kids, stop trying to win an argument, win a friend, and you'll be influential.
Yeah, that's fair. And when I give speeches, I always say I'm not trying to change anyone's mind, because if I could change someone's mind in 10 minutes, someone else could change it in the next 10 minutes. I just want to make people think. But yeah, but by the way, for the people who listen because they're friends and think, well, Gabe agrees with everything Trump does. I can think of something I read this week that I don't agree that they're doing. Just in general, the government's involvement in private business, where we're taking equity stakes in private businesses. Yeah, and I think that goes against sort of conservative values and separation and private sector and public sector. There may be great people in the public sector today, some of whom are my friends, and I know I would trust with our taxpayer money, but systemically, it's not a good move, right? So
I couldn't agree more. That's one of the many things that, and like I said, I love what Trump does a lot, but I think we're also out of balance. The executive branch is up here, the legislative branch is down here. It's supposed to be co-equal. And it's great when somebody like Trump is in, because he's going to do things I want to do, mostly.
Right.
There are going to be some things I'm going to disagree with. But problem is, when we get the next Democratic president, he's going to do the same thing. And we're going to be outraged and be like, how dare he? Well, let's not be hypocritical. Democracy is exceedingly frustrating because it's built to be slow. And you never get to the change that you want, but it's the way, the checks and balances, so you don't go too far on the pendulum. It shouldn't be done by executive privilege, not by emergency powers, which we really don't have an emergency for most of the things we're doing right now. This should be an agreement between people and a compromise, even when I don't like it. And I don't like it a lot of times. I think we're far too liberal in the amount of money we spend on the things we do, but that's democracy, and that's the way we designed our Constitution. Frustratingly so, but it's been very successful for a very long time.
What's interesting is, first, to go back 1 second on your comment on your senators in Georgia and their positions on Israel and other positions. It's incredible how our democracy works, where you would have two U.S. senators, which are statewide elections, that look and sound like that. By look and sound, I mean what they're in their content, of course, of their positions they're taking. And then you have Brian Kemp as a governor, who has a totally different position. You know, I think Kemp generally is great, and on issues related to Israel and Jewish community, he's been fantastic, and many other issues. And he's totally different than the two U.S. senators that we have. And it's just interesting from a political perspective. You talk about government being slow. I want to talk just a little bit about Congress. Two different things I want to bring up. First of all is, why can't we pass a damn budget? And for people who don't know, there's a continuing resolution, which is called kicking the can down the road. And for many issues, we did an episode on, I'm the chair of a medical research foundation called the Children's Tumor Foundation. And in the last CR, the disease that we fund, neurofibromatosis, lost its funding. It got back into the budget, even though we lost a year of funding, which is very important. It's tough to swallow. But now it's CRs again, and we can't really get it. There's a majority on both sides. I know in the Senate you need, I think it's 7 Democrats to vote with you, with the Republicans. But what's keeping us? What's the big picture of what's keeping us from actually passing a budget so the government can function the way it was meant to function?
Well, first I want to point out the irony. Imagine when you have the Freedom Caucus voting to extend a Democratic CR. It was Pelosi era type spending.
Yeah.
And it was the Freedom Caucus now saying we need a long-term CR. And then the Democrats saying we want to shut down the government because we don't like the Pelosi style CR. My brain's falling on my head. I'm like, what's happening here? Quite frankly, a shutdown puts all the eggs in Trump's basket. He gets to decide what's defunded and what's not. He gets to decide where the meager budget goes towards. Democrats aren't going to like that. And if they think that's going to leverage something good for them, I'm not voting for anything on compromise because everything they want is bad. We have control of the purse strings in Congress. The Senate gets the bill that they voted for back in December, by the way. 100% of Democrats voted for this in December, by the way. The same CR. So don't tell me this is us winning.
Oh, they didn't even change the terms of this CR.
This is a CR. Continuing resolution means continuing.
Right.
Well, I voted against it in December because I thought it was a horrible bill. I think we spent too much. But I'm not going to shut down the government over it because I understand I'm not going to get a better bill right now. So I'm trying to complete the budget, as you said, which hasn't been done in decades.
It's ridiculous.
And I'll get into that in a second. But to think of how dishonest this is the same bill that got 100% support from the Democrats back in December, but Schumer took a hard hit. Now he's trying to play the hard ball and he's trying to be the tough guy. He's going to look dumb. I really think this is a bad move because they bring it back to us with something that's compromised. I'm not voting for it.
Right.
I will not vote for it. I've told the president that. And the president said, I'm not even meeting with him because what they're asking for is unreasonable. And it is unreasonable. And all we have to do is educate the public that this is a Democratic bill to begin with. It's left over from decades ago with high spending, COVID level spending. It's not a good bill. The big, beautiful bill was okay. I wouldn't call it beautiful. It was big. It was the best we could get. And that's, once again, democracy. And when it comes to the budget process, the NDAA was passed. That's Armed Services. We passed Foreign Affairs. All my committees got passed. And I'm very proud of what we're doing bipartisanly to do what's right for America. But when it comes to where your other spending is, realize 2/3 of our budget is either Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. And it's the fastest growing stuff, by the way. And just Medicare and Medicaid, which is healthcare, takes up $2.5 trillion per year. You add that to where you spend out of pocket, it's the biggest expense to all Americans. $5 trillion by itself would be the 3rd largest world economy. And of that, about $1 trillion is wasteful spending. Easily over 25% is administrative costs. And bad behavior by insurance companies, pharmaceuticals, PBMs, hospital systems. They're doing the wrong thing because either they're trying to survive or they're just trying to make massive profits. And next year, watch out, guys. You're going to have a 9% on average increase in your premiums. 9%. For what? Because all these government supplementation is going to go away. And that's what we're fighting over right now. Do we increase the deficit and debt or do we increase our premiums? Insurance companies don't need that. You know how much profit they're making? More than 9%, I promise you that. This is all about profit and stuff in your pockets while they're giving almost 1/3 of all healthcare claims are being denied. So who has to pick up the bill? The American people. And this is what's wrong. And this is when Becerras was the Secretary of Health and Human Services, he was sued 4 times by Texas alone. And he's a lawyer, by the way, for Biden. Lost every single case as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. That's how wrong that they were sold out to special interests. We need to fix that big time because we're not doing the American people any justice right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. If people would just stop and listen and put away the partisanship, so many of the issues that are being spoken about, not all of them, but so many of the issues being spoken about by Americans are the same issues, right? And just no one wants to listen to the other side. No one wants to come up with solutions that work. And that's where sort of we have this gridlock, not just in Congress, in politics all over the country, that people are operating off of different sets of facts. I did a panel last week or 2 weeks ago in Pittsburgh, and I was arguing back and forth with the moderator about whether truth is objective. He said, no, it's subjective. Everyone has their own truth. I'm like, no. You can't play with the English language like that. And when you have that, you can't even have real discussions on things, right? It's incredible. Tell me about, I want to focus for a few minutes on the divide that we're starting to see within the Republican Party, particularly when it comes to Israel. Still the vast majority, For full disclosure, I'm on the board of the Republican Jewish Coalition. This podcast has nothing to do with them. I don't speak on their behalf, nor do they want me to, nor do I want to. But just for disclosure, in case anyone was wondering. But there is a divide, and it's growing. It's still a small number of people that call themselves isolationists, but it's getting worse and worse, right? We have the Thomas Masseys and those guys kind of.
I agree.
MJT for sure, the space laser woman, and others, and we're seeing it
Carlson.
in the podcast world is where we're seeing it the most, but that does trickle over
Sure does.
into politics. So tell me what you're seeing in the halls of Congress in that regard.
I agree with you. Most people aren't like that, but we are seeing this movement from a fringe portion that doesn't understand that America first is not isolationism. China circumnavigated the world before Magellan back in about 1421. They had more wealth, they had more science, they had more trade, they had everything in their basket. They were the world power at the time. They had more wealth than all of Europe combined in the 15th century. They became isolationists. We know what happened to them after that? They became irrelevant.
Yeah.
And by the way, if we do that, we become irrelevant in our influence. We can no longer negotiate tariffs once we become isolationists, truly. If we're not helping other countries, they don't care what we say. China will fill that void. They will become the world superpower. We'll become a forgotten Great Britain style. We'll still be powerful. We'll still have a great economy, but nothing like we enjoy right now. America first is being involved. That doesn't mean we need to go put boots on the ground, but it does mean we're involved, and we pick and choose our friends very carefully. And this whole idea that being friends with, and by the way, this all came to a head, I think, with Israel because people are trying to be consistent in thought. If you don't want to help Ukraine, why do you help Israel? Israel's in a much better spot than Ukraine. So if pick and choose. Now you can say, well, one's an ally, one's a friend, one's not part of NATO, the other one's part of I2U2 and other organizations. But to be consistent in thought, we either believe that it's okay to get involved or it's not. And I think this is what has brought it to head because they're not that far from each other. Right. And the mission is totally different in regards that Israel has a huge military advantage, but so does Russia, the people going against us. But what do we stand for? What is power projection? What is peace through strength? What is best for America? And that's what I go back to. You're right. What is best for America? What's best for our economy? I say getting involved is best for our economy. It will project power. It will result in peace. And that includes with India too, by the way. They're the next up and comer. They're right behind China. They have 1.47 billion people. They're increasing at 8% per year. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Do we want them to gravitate towards China and have a massive problem where they control the majority of the economy? Or did we want them to gravitate towards us and be more with I2U2, which, by the way, for people who don't realize, Israel, India, United States, and United Arab Emirates. I know it sounds like a weird mix of people, but it's kind of like the four corners of religion and economy and thought coming together and sharing ideas and actually solving some problems. And I'd much rather see India with the second largest economy and overtake China and be a friendly, non-aggressive nation, solving the world's problems and creating peace with us, than start to gravitate towards China, which is happening right now. They were at the the big Chinese military parade, and that has to do with tariffs and hard feelings about buying Russian oil. But we need to pull them in tight. We need to be smart, not isolationists, or we'll be the ones looking out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And India is an interesting animal in the political landscape because they kind of play both sides. They stay neutral. It's not like Qatar, Turkey, both sides, but it's more of, we care about our own people and our economy, and they've got a ton of buying power. They buy weapons from Israel. They're big purchasers of weapons from Israeli weapons industry. People don't realize because of the funding that Israel gets from the U.S. has to be spent in the U.S. So the Israeli weapons industry, historically at least, sells a lot abroad as opposed to be using it in Israel. So India is a big purchaser, but also with all the minerals that there's wars the next war is going to be fought over lithium, right? Those are those kind of minerals that are going to be critical for the advancement of the next technological
lithium,
age.
Cobalt, uranium.
Yeah.
There's a lot of valuable minerals out there, and it's being pilfered right now by China, by the way.
Yeah, and I met last week with the chief of staff of the Republican candidate, they call themselves Republicans, of Chile. And he's one of the biggest mines, I think, of cobalt and lithium in the world. And he's very pro-America, very pro-Israel, pro-West. which is the polar opposite of what's there today in Chile. So hopefully we keep drawing more and more people to our side of the ledger here in America. Dr. Congressman, I hope I got it right in the order. Rich McCormick, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. People all the time say, these days good people don't run for government. They haven't met you. When they do, they wouldn't think that. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. We consider ourselves friends and look forward to the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rich McCormick. Thanks, everyone. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and do all the great things you do to support podcasts. And we'll see you next week.